want to call this special meeting of March 11th to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Hall.
Here.
Vice Mayor Winters.
Here.
Councilmember Sanders.
Here.
Councilmember Judd.
Here.
Councilmember Hayden.
Here.
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
And Councilmember Duffy.
He's excused.
Thank you very much.
Okay, would you all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have a city manager report or?
No report, Mayor.
No? Okay, city clerk report?
No report, Mayor.
And we have a call to the public. I understand we have one speaker.
Yes, we do. Mr. Bob Vukanovich.
Good evening, Bob. Welcome.
Beg pardon?
Welcome.
Thank you. Honorable council members, you know, in the late 1990s, we formed an entity called the Municipality Property Corporation. The corporation is an Arizona nonprofit with bylaws. The registered agent is Sherry Ann Aguilar, city clerk. I hope you can understand what I'm saying.
We understand.
With its ability to borrow money, our city was built. Other than Go Bonds, most of the city's borrowed money was funneled through this corporation until October 1st, 2018, when it was dissolved. Wasn't the MPC board required to do the refinancing? How would the MPC dissolve? I can't find no record of how you guys resolved this. And I was curious how the city told the board that they didn't have to sign and approve the minutes, because state law says you have to approve the minutes. You told the board, don't have to sign the minutes. Now this all, what I just told you here can be verified by the city clerk, because she got the information, copy, email, same time I did. So she's got the information, what I've told you. So I'm just curious. Then you have this Ken Wright, who I know, he was on a meeting in 2017 in December. His term expired in March. So who's watching the money? When I was on the council, I tried to find out who owned this property. MPC? Where's the deeds? Who? They never would tell me. So I think the MPC has to own it because they borrow against the property. So apparently they have to own the property if they can borrow against it. But I think the council ought to look into this here. And if you think that staff can do a real good job, I'll tell you one instance. 2007 bonds, we got over $50 million. The payoff was 25 years, okay? After 25 years, we're gonna have a balloon payment of 25 million. We sold the bonds for 50. 25 years. Paying all those payments. We're gonna have a balloon payment of 25 million. I just thought I should bring you up to date on this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Bob. Andrea, maybe you can, I know you answered some questions in writing to Bob, but maybe there can be some further clarification on that?
Absolutely.
Okay,
These presentations.
yeah.
Well, after our presentation, I can sit and talk with you.
Your answers I don't accept. You gave me answers already. No good.
Oh. Okay. All right. We'll go to the agenda. We have 3 items. And there's no consent. These are all regular items. So the first item,
This item is consideration and action pertaining to adoption of land use assumptions and infrastructure improvements plan and directing the city manager to provide notice of the city's intent to impose development impact fees. This is Resolution 2019-31.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Andrea and I are here today for the formal adoption of the land use assumptions and infrastructure improvement plans. So that's a lot of words. So if you hear us going forward, we're going to say the LUA for the land use assumptions and the IIP for the infrastructure improvement plans. So just a quick tutorial on our acronyms that we're going to say. So this has been presented with Tischler Bice. Ben and Carson have been up here with me before, kind of going through this whole process. I think we started in November. So a quick history of our timeline. We brought forth in November a work session on the land use assumption. So a lot of this information will be repetitive, but we feel it's important to make sure that this information is out there and it's transparent and it's clear for the community. On December 13th, we held a stakeholder meeting with the development community. We invited, I believe it was 1,500 people that were in our contact list to come. So we had a meeting with them, and then we had our posting. We had another meeting with them in January and talked a little bit about that. We had a public hearing on February 5th, talking about making sure that we were ready to go to council to bring this to you on this specific date for a formal adoption. And that brings us to why we're here tonight and why we called this special meeting. So our land use assumptions, we're going to go over what our projections are over the next 10 years for our land use assumptions and our infrastructure improvement plan. We have our infrastructure improvement plan for multiple different categories. We have our parks and recreation category, our fire and EMS, our police category. And one specific change that's happened during the stakeholder meetings and talking with our internal departments is that we've removed the street fee. And I know we had talked about that last time we did our public hearing, that we were going to contemplate moving this out. So we are going to take this out of our IIP and land use assumptions. We're going to bring it back to you. Terry and Eric and his group are going to be working on fine-tuning this and working with the development community some more. And so we can really hone in on those fees and make sure that they're easy to administer and then they're transparent and we can easily articulate those. So that's the biggest change that you've seen over the last several months that we've taken out. So that won't be in our new fees that we're going forward with today and when we come back in May. So we also have our water system fee, our water resource fee, and our wastewater fee. So just a brief history of what a land use assumptions are, or the LUA. That's our projected growth, how we anticipate Surprise growing over the next 10 years. In 2017, we had Applied Economics, which is a local consulting economic group, put together our land use assumptions for mostly for the public safety master plan. So we were doing that in conjunction with getting ready for this development impact fee study. So those are the same land use assumptions that we've used in our previous study. So just so you'll see the correlation, those numbers should tie out to both of those studies. Those really haven't changed, but they would just be formally adopted tonight. So what that's doing is that's looking at our current demands that we have and then our future needs for service. We look at that as a citywide basis, and we also look at that as special planning areas. So the city is broken up into 6 special planning areas. We're sitting in SPA 1 right now. SPA 2, we do anticipate a lot of growth happening, and then SPA 3, and then 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit further out where we're not anticipating a lot of growth coming up. So with that, when you look at Surprise, you can see that we are growing. We are not landlocked like several other Maricopa County cities are. We do have a lot of space that we can expand to, and we only take up a tiny little sliver of what we could actually expand to. So when they look at our land use assumptions, they're looking with the University of Arizona. They're looking at our MAG projections. They're going through all of those different projections, working with the development community, anticipating where the growth is going to happen. We use this so we can start anticipating the growth that the city is going to need and making sure that we're able to project this. So as you can see, overall, the citywide total, we're expecting 21,000 EDU increase in the next 10 years. So that's quite a bit of growth, a lot more than a lot of our neighboring cities are seeing. We're also seeing growth in about 45%, which is 9 million square feet in new new retail, office, industrial, in our commercial sector. So we're going to be seeing some growth in that area too. So with our land use assumptions, did you guys have any questions on our land use assumptions or those growth patterns? Okay, with that, we will be moving on into
Councilman Remley.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mayor. At the work session, we asked a question about the assumption that was being used for the value of land that was being purchased. Did we get any feedback from that?
Mayor, Councilmember Remley, I think it's a difficult thing to answer. We do have an inflationary cost in land, but it depends on if it's a development land that's given to us in a development agreement, that price is set. If it's with the placement of it, if it's next to its viable commercial land, then it would be the fair market value. If
We were
it's
talking about the purchase of land for parks and such.
correct.
Okay.
So we have that put in as, we have it as 100,000 plus an inflationary period or inflationary factor. Depending on which one it is, we can work with our CI group specifically, but it does vary depending on special planning area, where they're putting it, where they're projecting that land to be at. So it's a hard question to answer to give you a dollar amount to, but we did take it into consideration.
Well, my question was the value that was being used based upon the purchase price of acreage of land right now?
Mayor, Councilmember Rembley. I believe in our review, depending, like Holly mentioned, the cost of sometimes the development agreement, it's a known amount that's already set. And that with the averaging of all the other prices that we have, we review, we think it's a reasonable estimate for our IIP at this point in time.
Well, you know, I understand development agreements, that we have such things. But if I want to go out there and buy 8 acres of land right now, in any area that's close to being developed, where a park would be put today, can I buy land at $100,000 an acre? That's my question.
Councilmember Remley, at this point.
And so the guy that did these forecasts and these assumptions was requested that he would get back to us on what those assumptions were based on and whether that was a reasonable number or not. The numbers I've been seeing are nearly double that. And if we're going to base our impact fees on realistic numbers, we should be using what current market is.
Mayor, Councilmember Rembley, we will look at that. I know we told you we'd follow up. We believe it's reasonable what's in here, but we will get you some numbers, some evaluations, more specific details, and we'll follow back up with you.
Super, thank you.
So for our parks fee, we have several different projects going in with our parks fee. We have new projects that we're planning on anticipation coming through. We have some developer obligations or some debt we have to pay off. For instance, $4 million for Asante Park, which is a developer obligation that we have. We have upcoming fee reports, but a lot of it is part of our CIP plan of places that we see growth or Parks is projecting growth coming in. So our Parks and Recreation fee, when they put together their IIP, they have $66 million worth of infrastructure over the next 10 years that they're looking at. The way our fees are calculated, we wouldn't bring in $66 million worth of revenue with our impact fees. So we just wanted to point out that while the fee is not a known, it's right here, it's about $1,200, there's going to be a delta where you're going to have to come up with other funding sources to fund those projects. So it's not all going to be development impact fee. While they're eligible, we won't bring in the revenue to build all of these parks with impact fees. And that's a reoccurring theme throughout. You'll see on each one of these slides is we have a lot more projects that we have anticipated revenue coming in. So I think almost all of these, you will have a deficit. So those funding sources we'd have to come up with are our general capital, our fund balance, transportation improvement, any of our other funds, or we would have to look elsewhere for other funding mechanisms for those. So with that, with our current fees going in, and this is just to give you an idea, we're expecting about $24 million worth of revenue that we'll bring in. The impact fee laws on parks is very specific. We have 25-acre parks. I know that this does include the land projections for our CIP, the land development on how to actually develop the raw land, and the infrastructure going on top of that. So they have different variations of projects, but they haven't changed too much in the last several months. So with our fire and EMS, we have the bond projects in there. We have Fire Station 304 and 308 because some of those will be growth eligible. We have the new fire station, which is potentially 309, is in our impact fee study over the next 10-year horizon. And then we have fire station land. We have utility trucks, water tender, we have a ladder truck, we have ambulances in there. And then we also have several interfund loans and debt obligations. So we can still keep repaying our debt. We have outstanding debt on several of our old fire stations as well as interfund loans. So with our calculated fee, we're going to bring in about $20 million. And again, that number could fluctuate, but you can see that in our list of projects, we have $32 million worth of projects. So when we're calculating the fee, we're taking into consideration the bond credits, not charging people. We need to figure out our funding strategy for some of those. Can we pay off some of the bonds earlier with our impact fees? And we'll make those decisions as we go along. But those are all the fees that would be growth eligible for fire.
Councilman Sanders?
Last time we had spoke, you said there were about 80 different development agreements right now, and I'm assuming more to come. And the street revenue, that's a valuable source of revenue. And I know you said it was kind of excluded and it can be a one-off at some point in the future. Do you have a timeline for that? I mean, are we looking like a year out, 2 years out, when that might be, kind of put together?
Mayor, Councilman Sanders, the timeline's hard to say, but I know that we have a group of people that are working on it, our community development, and I think it's headed up by Terry Lowe, that we really want to make sure that the street fee goes in. They're working with the development community, making sure that it's fair and equitable. So is the timeline, I'm not sure, but I know that it's something that they really want to put in the city and put in. We just want to make sure that it's fully vetted.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Winters?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you go back one slide, Holly, for me?
Please. Looking at Rancho Mikado Park, we're calling it a neighborhood park, 13-acre neighborhood park.
Mayor, Vice Mayor Remley, yes, it's a 13-acre park that is part of their development agreement. So part of their development agreement is they're going to give us 13 acres of land that they would give us the land, but then in return, the city would be obligated to build a park on that specific designated 13 acres. So it's very...
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
So on our police fee, we have our property and evidence facility. We have our substation for 3 acres of land. We have a police substation for $9 million. We have our public safety building. We also, a thing to note about our police fee is we have police vehicles, future police vehicles, and police equipment. So while we cannot pay for people with this, we can, if we bring in a new police officer, we can pay for the vehicle that comes with that police officer or some of those equipments that come with the police officer with development impact fees. So with that, again, you can see that we have a deficit. We'll bring in about $10 million worth of revenue, and then we'll have about $7 million to come up with our current plan, our current staffing projections, and our current land use assumptions. So our water system fee, all of our fees before were citywide fees. Our water system fee is actually broken down into service areas. So similar to the service areas we've talked about, they're the same boundaries as Special Planning Area 1, Special Planning Area 2, and Special Planning Area 3. So each one of those has different components. There's a lot of developer obligation requirements in there from development agreements that we have outstanding. And then there's a couple new projects going on. And most of those are currently going on or in part of the horizon that Terry's talked to us about. So with that, each one of these has about a $3,000 fee, give or take, and then the corresponding revenues with that puts them all at, we need to come up with different funding from the sewer operations or sewer capital funds. Going into our water resource fee, this is our IIP, sorry. Our water resource IIP is really more focused on land acquisitions, acquiring water rights, and water leases in exchange to make sure that we're supplying our city residents with enough water to get us through. Our wastewater fee we have two special planning areas. We have SPA 1 and SPA 2. We have a lot of interfund loans and debt service payment in our wastewater SPA 1. We also have some developer obligations that we need to pay back. So we have a lot of this is really just collecting fees to remit to our debt service payments or interfund loans that we have outstanding. And then our SPA 2, we have some additional land, some connection pipelines that we have, and then we have developer obligations. We also have a shared wastewater facility up there that a lot of those developers, while the fee is in here, they won't be paying wastewater fees. But we do want to keep it in the study for this point to make sure that we memorialize that we have an agreement outstanding with several of the developers out there. So with that, we have revenues projected to come in at about $67 million and $6 million respectively. And then we have expenditures of almost $90 million and $30 million. So we do have an upside down situation in this one too. So that is kind of a high-level overview of our land use assumptions and our infrastructure improvement plan. With that, we would ask you guys to take action and adopt the land use assumptions and infrastructure improvement plan. And then with that, next steps, we'll be posting the development impact fees on our website and moving forward with the public notice to be able to start the adoption process for getting those fees updated and being able to start charging those fees in August.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a
motion that we accept resolution number 2019-31.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. If there's no other comments, please cast your vote.
Six yes vote, one excuse, Duffy.
Okay. Item number 2.
Presentation and discussion regarding department budget overview. Presentations for this session include economic development and community development.
Right. Hello again. So, good evening, Mayor, member of council members. We're here tonight to present on economic development and community development. So, as you can see, Eric and Janine, the directors of those departments, are here as well to answer any questions that you have. So, with that, we're going to start with the economic development department. And with that, for their FY19 operating budget, their 99% funded from the general fund, about 1% coming from donations. They have 9 full-time employees. 7 of those are here at City Hall, and 2 of those work at the Texcelerator. So in total, expenditures of $1.3 million, revenue of $155,000, and that revenue is generated from the tenants that we have at the Texcelerator. So really those startup businesses that the incubator is there for to support, pay those monthly fees just if they were operating business. And really those fees are set depending on where they're at in their, maturity level, if they're beginning, how often they're there. So really the program to make them successful, but also kind of teach them the way it is to pay a fee every month for your rent. So some of those capital programs, kind of continuing with the Texcelerator theme, really some renovations. That is an older building, so really just doing some renovations, some upkeep to make that a nice facility that we provide to those tenants. That their future needs, we also have security and facility renovation. That is one specific that hasn't been programmed yet, just to make sure that those tenants feel safe and secure over in that area as well. And they also need some software. So some software that's been identified to help some of the efficiencies of that department. So with that, do you have any comments or questions?
Any questions from the council? Vice Mayor Winters.
Just like to mention that your parking lot does need to be replaced.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, that is scheduled to be completed this spring, later in the spring. I don't know if Janine, if you want to talk about it, but that is scheduled to be done.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The parking lot project at the Texcelerator is scheduled to start early April, so next month, and we're aspiring to have it completed by June 30th.
Super.
Thank you.
Okay, so our Community Development Department. So the department in total, general funded by 97%, 3% coming from grants. A lot of those grants are your Safe Route to Schools, some planning grants, those things that make up that 3%. In total, they have 42 full-time employees and 0.4 full part-time staff. Wow, I don't know, that was so difficult.
16 hours.
So in total, their expenditures are $4.9 million for the year. They do generate revenue of $6.1, a majority of that coming from those charges for services. And just a note, the charges for services, what we collect, really plan and permit review fees, those sort of fees that come through our community development department. Some of the costs generated to provide the services that we do throughout the city, some of those costs are in, for example, a fire inspector is in the fire department, and that cost isn't shown necessarily in community development, but that is part of what those charges for services cover are some of those costs. In addition, like the civil engineers in the public works department, so you don't see those that expense here, but we do we're collecting that cost to cover those expenses. So some of the capital programs that they have, the original town site project that's going on, the transit feasibility study that you were they did a presentation earlier this year, that continues, just finalizing that. Some road projects, really just identifying where those roads should be developed and those design studies for that. So really their future needs, contracted inspectors. We mentioned earlier those revenues that we're generating from charges for services. A lot of that stuff is based on growth, and it could be depending on how the market is and how's the construction industry doing. So a lot of that stuff, we're looking at contracted inspectors just in case if that growth decreases, there are contracted positions to help offset some of the decrease in revenues we may see. The original town site incentive program, and then a municipal code update. So with that, any questions or comments on community development?
Councilman Sanders.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit what that municipal code update is?
Sure, Mayor, Council Member. So one of the updates that we'll be doing this year is for the zoning ordinance. And when we do that zoning ordinance update, we'll need to reflect what the update is, if it's approved by planning or recommended for planning and zoning, approved by council, into Muni Code. So there's a cost associated with changing out all those codes in Muni Code.
And so Muni Code it's a software program, is that right?
It's an online system that we, that our city code sits on the web, so you can search it and so forth. So
Okay. Thank you. Alrighty. I guess that's it.
That's it. All right. Thank you.
Okay, item number 3.
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and action pertaining to authorizing city staff to acquire fee title or lesser interest in real property generally located along the 171st Avenue alignment between the Dynamite Road alignment and Dale Lane within sections 25 and 26 of Township 5 North, Range 2 West in Surprise, Arizona by dedication, donation, purchase, or eminent domain, Resolution 2019-27.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, I don't have a presentation necessarily for this. Basically, we've been working with a developer that is developing the corner of Dale Lane and 171st Avenue, and they've been trying to obtain right-of-way from basically Desert Oasis, the Dynamite Road area, up to Dale Lane. And with this, working with that developer, they've made offers. We've worked with them on other deeds of specific property in that area, but there is one or two property owners that we may need to look at doing some further evaluation on. So we've been working through legal on this as well. And if you have any questions for myself, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, Vice Mayor Winters.
Thank you, Mayor. Eric, is that property right on 171st?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, yes. One of the properties is on 171st. It fronts along it.
So you have one single property owner that does not want to give up his property. Is that the idea?
Not going into specifics, but we do have at least one property owner.
At least one. So there could be more.
Based on my knowledge of it, with us recording them, it's one.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Judd.
Thank you, Mayor. So what's there now?
Currently, there's kind of a dirt path. There's not real right-of-way on it. There's more than likely access easements, individual access easements. What this would do is actually build a road from, in essence, Dynamite Road up to Dale Lane.
Okay, and how much property does the developer or the developers have now? I mean, how much of their land would we be taking?
Just 1 second. Mayor, Councilmember Judd, it's about 50 feet. Basically, it's a minor arterial standard on 171st Avenue, so it's 50 feet on one side of the road, and there's 50 feet on the other side of the road that was given.
And they own lots of acreage out there. Then they don't just have. It's not just a little parcel.
No, I think most of the parcel in that area about 5 acres or so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Sanders. This is obviously last resort, right? I mean, can you just explain some of the steps that have been taken to this point? I know you talked a little bit about working with legal, but maybe a little bit more detail. Mayor, Councilmember Sanders. So typically, when we go down this path, is first if the developer does it, or even if the city does it, we're instructed to go out there and do an appraised value on the property. Based on the taking of whatever that property is. And so in this case, the right-of-way was appraised. The developer made an offer to the individual. He documented that offer. He made other ferries out of trying to get a hold of that owner. And then for us to even attempt to, or even look at potentially going this route, we request that they offer a minimum 125% of appraised value, just because when you start getting into these other items and court proceedings and those kinds of things, you're going to end up paying more for the property anyway. So in this case, the developer has done these steps, and at this point, it's basically the last thing we can do. Okay, thank you. Good question, Dave.
So Mayor
and
Council, if I could, I just want to clarify something Mr. Fitzer just said. In a condemnation action, you don't end up paying more for the property. You pay the fair market value for the property. I think what he's referring to is there's obviously resources in my office that are utilized, and that's additional expense in a manner.
Right.
Yeah, my apologies, though.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Okay, there's no other questions. I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept resolution number 2019-27.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. If there's no more comments or questions, please cast your vote.
I am sorry. Would you mind pressing your buttons again, please?
Mm-hmm. I know, me too.
Unanimous, yes, vote, Mayor?
Okay, that's it for the business part of the meeting. Is there any, does anybody want anything on a future agenda item? No? Okay, we'll suspend council reports tonight. This is a special meeting. We have no e-session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn the special meeting.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
Man, that was brutal.
Coming up on SBTV, this year's State of the City celebrates our community successes and City Hall's 10th anniversary. And we've launched the city's first ever tourism website and invite you to explore Surprise. Hi, I'm Diane Arthur, and welcome to SBTV. You're invited to the 2019 State of the City video premiere to witness the city's most recent accomplishments